Hi, nice to see you again.
Nice
How are you doing?
to see you too. Good, how are you?
Okay, let's have a seat. So, how'd you get here today?
I took a cab.
Okay,
Yes.
so you're still, is that kind of been your basic means of transportation lately?
Basically, because the bus doesn't run out this way, so it's hard because the bus system only goes a couple of the main streets.
I'm sorry to hear that, I didn't realize.
Yeah.
I'm not very familiar with the buses around here, but that'd be something for me to look into then, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get around place to place.
Well, I'm glad you made it. It's nice to see you
Thank you.
again. I realized I didn't ask you last time. Do you like to go by Miss Thompson or is Suzanne all right?
Suzanne's fine.
Okay, great. So last time we talked, Suzanne, we talked a little bit about getting out of your relationship, how you're no longer with your ex, and that's a good thing.
Yes.
And we talked about your sons a little bit, primarily just one of them who's having a little more issues in school.
Yeah.
And then we also talked about you trying to transition into a new job, if that's possible.
Yes.
Would you like to start with any of these things today?
Any of them are fine.
Okay, awesome. I think I'd like to know a little bit more about your sons because they seem to be a really important part of your life.
Yes.
And one of your main focuses on finding out, where you want to go from here so
Sure.
that they have the best education and everything.
Of course, yeah. My two sons, Ben and John, are my priority. They had a really good relationship growing up, but during the last few years with my husband, it became kind of like a strain on their relationship, and John started acting out a little bit more in school. They transitioned to high school, and John kind of turned, I think, to smoking weed as an outlet. He would come home from school and he would smell smoke. And I tried to talk to him about this, but he just denies everything. And I know it's just the relationship, the divorce was really hard on him. So John is a little bigger than, and taller than Ben, and Ben's always been a little more scrawny, and that's definitely one of his things that he's been self-conscious about. And John uses that against him and kind of picks on his brother, which is really sad because they used to be really close. And I noticed Ben has had trouble transitioning in high school. He's a lot more quiet and reserved. So seeing him not be able to go to his brother has been a really hard on me, knowing that, your two sons are dealing with some issues themselves.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be a hard family dynamic to work with when it's important for you to be a team.
Exactly.
Especially with two boys going to the same high school.
Yeah. And with them them being the same age, it's a little difficult because Ben is he never really struggled with school. He's definitely very into his studies, and so I've been trying to push him to maybe branch out socially. I encouraged him to try out for the soccer team.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, and which is going really well. He's made some new friends, but the one thing is I can't really afford the equipment to be on the team. He was luckily enough being able to get a scholarship to pay for just the basic athletic fees, but it's hard getting new uniforms. They're growing boys, and I can't support them constantly needing new cleats and stuff. So
right,
it's hard because I really want him to be able to branch out, but it's difficult when I can't pay for it.
So he has been doing soccer for a little bit then. How has he liked that with engaging with other students and everything?
I think it's helped the transition into high school a little better. Freshman year, it's tough because they came from a really small high school, and we moved areas after the divorce, and not really having anyone to go to was a little difficult. John's very talkative, and he honestly can talk to anyone, be comfortable, but Ben's definitely more reserved. So I think having more of a team dynamic helps him be a little more outgoing and know that there's people, that want to befriend him and they care about his well-being.
That's good. And maybe it sounds like I hear that they're picking on each other a little bit.
Yeah.
So maybe having soccer will give a little more confidence.
I think so.
That's good. So now I want to talk about John a little bit then.
Yeah.
You said that he has been coming home smelling like smoke. Will you tell me a little bit more about that? When did that start happening?
Sure. During the beginning of the year, they were a little hesitant to go into this new school, And then I know John really like branched out and found a group. With the group that he's with, I know they're a little like worrisome for me because when he comes home, you know, I know like the signs of just how he used to be. He's super outgoing, but he's a little more laid back and just unresponsive to me. And he just has smells of smoke, and I know his grades have been slipping. You know, he struggles with grades in general, but he has been able to maintain like a steady average. But now I notice they're slipping a little more, and I've talked to his teachers, and he's a little less interested in his studies. So I'm just really worried that he's using drugs to cope with the situation.
Right. So it sounds like there's definitely been a change in behavior that you've noticed.
Yes.
Okay. Well, when you say coping with the situation, when you say that, are you talking about your recent divorce with your husband?
Yeah.
Or separation? Sorry.
Yeah, we're in the process of divorce. I had to get out of that situation. It was just really toxic, and especially the boys were. It started when they were about 10 or 11, so that's it really impacted them not having their father being a good support during those transitioning years. And so I think just the lack of their father really just kind of impacted them.
Right, so maybe they don't have a male role model in their life right now, and that could be causing a little stress for them as growing boys.
Yeah.
So how is your ex now involved in your son's life? What does that look like?
To be honest, I kind of was hesitant to let him contact the boys just because of the last few years have been really, I was a little scared for our safety as a family. He never really laid hands on the boys, but there was times where I was afraid that he was going to. They have visitation twice a month with him, but he does live in a different city, so getting to them, but they do talk on the phone. But I think the boys do have a little resentment towards my ex-husband.
So it sounds like that physical distance might be a good thing.
I think so.
For you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now, do you think have you seen any changes in behavior right after they've had their visitations in the month at all?
Not really. I've noticed they're a little quieter when they come home. They still talk and tell me what they did, and their visitations are very good. It's very positive, and I think, Robert, my ex-husband, is getting treatment, so I think that's a positive. So I think that they notice a change in their dad, but it's just hard on them because they know the past, and that's hard for them to accept. That their dad, was kind of abusive to the family, and that's really hard to cope with.
And do I remember correctly that your husband also had an issue with drinking?
Yes.
And that was a big issue in your relationship?
Mm-hmm.
So do you fear at all that might be, let's say rubbing off, but maybe having an influence on your son's drug use? The fact that there might be some alcoholism in your family?
I'm worried about that because, he saw his dad turn to drinking as a form of coping with his dad's passing. So I'm just really worried that he'll fall into the same habits and using that as a coping mechanism.
And that's a really good thing to be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been able to have an open conversation with your son about this?
I've tried. He's very distant with that. He says, "No, Mom, I'm fine. You don't have to worry." And it's just kind of a little passive-aggressive with that area, which is understandable. I mean, they're
teenagers.
Yeah. And they're at that age where they think, they're in high school, so they're independent. They don't really need their mom on their back, but it's just a little difficult getting to him.
Right. Yeah. So then do you know many of since your sons don't seem to really be getting along as friends themselves,
Mm-hmm.
who of your friends, peers and friends, sorry, that was a mouthful.
Sure.
How many of your son's friends do you know? Do you like them? Or
I know a couple of them. When I go to Ben's soccer games, I've gotten to know some of those boys just by watching them and talking to their parents. And that seemed like a really good group of boys. The soccer coach does a really great job at making sure grades are met, and they have a strict practice schedule, which I think is very positive to keep Ben out of the house and getting to know new people. And John, I know a couple of his friends, and I don't think they're bad kids at all, but I think that, they just got caught up in the excitement of high school, having a little more freedom.
Right.
And I'm just worried that John's taking advantage of that freedom,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, teenagers do tend to get in trouble sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but it's good to know that you don't feel like his friends are a negative impact on him.
Yeah.
Does it also seem like he might have been, or might be talking to his friends about things that have been going on in the home, or that he has some sort of support there?
I think so. I think that he really likes his friends. I know they have fun together. I think that they're like a good support system. I'm just worried that they're having a little too much fun. But it's nothing to worry about as long as he is able to get his grades. But I just really want to maintain like supervision, which is hard.
Yeah. Don't want to be on their back.
Exactly.
So would you want to talk a little bit about what your relationship now looks like with your ex? Like, how is your communication and everything?
It's definitely, I haven't seen him in person. I just am not ready to do that. But we do talk. We talk about the boys, visitation. I do drop them off to see him, but I normally stay in the car and just kind of watch from afar, just make sure they get in. And
is there anyone else present when they have visitation, or is it just him and the boys?
He's living with his parents right now.
Okay.
So, or his mom, in his parents' house. So I do know, and I do have a good relationship with her, so I do talk to her. And I know that he is getting treatment, and I know that it's a positive thing, and there is positive change going on with his drinking. But yeah.
That's good to hear that there are good influences in his life.
Yes.
And that the boys have a good role model in other people in their family.
Yeah.
So what about your family? Are your parents still around?
When I was growing up, our dad was extremely abusive to our mother, and it was a really toxic environment. So I ended up having to take the role of kind of like mother for my sister, and we're 5 years apart, so growing up having that pressure was really kind of hard, and definitely it was hard watching my mom go through that and not really having to say. So when I was about 18, the second I was able to get out of the house, I did. And my sister wasn't able to get out of the house right then, but I maintained really close contact with her, and she stayed with me on the weekends. And as soon as she was 18, she came to live with me and get out of the house. And my father, he was just really physically, emotionally abusive towards my mother, and definitely emotionally abusive towards us growing up. And we don't have a good relationship at all. And that's what, going into this new relationship with Robert, that it really like triggered something. So I definitely wanted to get out of that as fast as possible.
I'm sorry to hear that. It sounds like that could have been a big stressor in your life growing up. But it does sound like you have a good relationship with your sister.
Yeah.
Is that still true today? Do you guys talk a lot?
Yeah, we're definitely very close. She's probably my strongest support system. She lives in the same area, about like half an hour away. And I really like her and her husband and their children. They have 2 little ones, and they're definitely a great support system for my sons too. They always know that they can talk to her. But I think it was just hard for her to see the relationship with me and Robert, because he was such he was like a strong support system during the time of my dad and my mom's relationship. So it was like hard seeing the lack of trust.
So your husband, your ex at one point was pretty involved with you as a family, and at one point was a support, it sounds like, for you?
Yeah. He was, we had a really great relationship. He was just a really fun guy. And then it seemed like when his father died, that was really the trigger. He and his father were really close, and then, I started noticing the increased number of beers at dinner, and then him staying out later, coming home smelling like alcohol, and his behavior becoming more aggressive and eventually violent. So I think the death of his father was really impacted him in a negative way.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay, so then let's jump to your mom a little bit. Mm-hmm. Do you still have a close relationship with her?
Yeah, she's been really sick lately, and so we do, she's in a home right now, so I go and see her as much as possible, but yeah, she definitely has had a hard life, so definitely get to talk to her as much as possible.
And when you say sick, is this, will you explain that a little bit more?
Sure, she has the symptoms for early onset Alzheimer's and dementia, so it's kind of hard because, she doesn't really sometimes remember all the details, and I try and see her as much as possible so we can keep that contact. But we decided on putting her in a home just so she gets that one-on-one attention.
Do you feel like she's well taken care of there?
I think so.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's good to hear. Yeah, it can be really hard when you start seeing a family member's health declining, especially when you've gone through so much with that person already. But it's good that you get to see her and she lives close.
Yes.
It sounds like that's... So have you always lived in the city here, or did you guys move here as a family?
We lived about 20 minutes away, and then after the divorce, I just wanted a fresh start, but not too far. So it's the next school district over. So it was a hard transition for the boys a little more because all their friends were at the old school. So they still talk to them kind of, but it's a little more difficult since we don't have a car. But I thought it was just better, and it was much better relationship for the boys, and I think it was a really good fresh start, and we're closer to my mom's nursing home, and so I think it's been a good transition.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're getting close to our time being up, but I want to know a little bit about how your work's been since we last saw you, because I know that was a stressor for you. How's this past few weeks been?
Yeah, since working at the restaurant, I'm just struggling to make ends meet. My old healthcare job at the last clinic was really good, and I was able to make a steady amount of money. But since losing that job because we had to move and that clinic actually shut down, it's been a struggle taking the bus to the restaurant and walking home at night. Kind of is a little difficult because the bus doesn't run the best hours. But I'm making ends meet for now. I just applied for food stamps, so hopefully that can help.
Okay, that's good. It'll be interesting to see how that works out for you when we meet next.
Yes.
Now, you said that you come home at night often from work. What do your work hours look like?
It depends. On the weekends, I tend to take the later shifts because I want to spend my time with the boys during the day, that's when Ben has soccer games mostly. So during the day, I normally work 9 to 5. And then on the weekends, I normally work the night shift, which can be 4 to close, which could be which ranges in the day.
So it's good that you have a little bit of flexibility, it might sound like, but still, you're working a lot of hours, and that's got to wear on you over time.
Mm-hmm. And it's just not enough money to be working those hours.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you feel like your work schedule has impacted your relationship with your sons at all, with working on the weekends? Is it hard to leave them at night?
It makes me a little nervous. I have noticed it makes me nervous for John and a little more, but I trust my boys. I just really hope that they're doing what's best. I haven't noticed any changes in the house, and it's not, and I have my cell phone on me at all times, which is good, and I am constantly in contact, sending texts when I have breaks at work, but it does make me a little nervous, and I definitely would like to try not to work on the weekends if possible, if I can find a job that could work with that.
Okay, so in a perfect world, you'd be able to be there more to tell when they get home and everything.
Exactly.
But you sound like you trust them, and you aren't afraid that they're being unsafe at all.
Yeah, I trust Sean. I'm just a little nervous that his smoking will increase, or something will happen.
Right.
But I'm trying to maintain good watch.
Yeah, and it must be kind of hard that your boys don't have very good communication between them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think has that changed since your breakup? It sounded like.
Yeah, they always had a really good relationship, especially during the last 5 years before the breakup. They definitely were each other's support system, and I think just the change in environment and I don't know if it's just John kind of saying rebelling, that we left, but I think hopefully it'll change, and maybe they're just going through a phase, trying to be independent. John wants to be cool.
Right.
But we'll see. I'm hoping that'll change.
Right. I mean, it might be a little hard to see them not supporting each other as much, but it does sound like they're trying to get independent and hold their own, so that's good.
Yeah.
Now, so we're up for our time this week, but I want to talk just a little bit. We talked a lot about your boys, and that seems like a good focus. When we talk next week, is there anything you'd like to discuss specifically?
Maybe a little bit more about job search.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be great. It's something we can look into.
Okay.
And I know that last time we spoke, we talked a lot about technical stuff. Are there any questions you have from our last visit still?
I don't really think so.
Okay, great. Well, don't hesitate to ask if anything does come up.
Okay.
And then, please schedule another meeting if you're able to. It was really nice to see you today.
I'd really like to. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.